All right. Hey, it is the 20th of April, 2023. Hello, hello. This is Plutus PBL, live coding from Gimbal Labs. We meet here every Wednesday and Thursday from 1430 to 1600 UTC. And I'm currently at the website, plutuspbl.io. There's a link at the top of the page where you can find registration links to upcoming live coding sessions. We're on today right now, but by next week, new links will be added. And after these meetings happen, they're all archived on YouTube, and links to the recording of each of these meetings can be found here. So this is just for anybody watching this video later on. If you want to join us, we're here, same time, same place, every Wednesday and Thursday. I wanted to start with just a really quick demo. We got a little bit deeper into contributor reference datum at yesterday's live coding session. And I want to reiterate that this chart that you see on this page right now, it's not complicated. It's certainly not beautiful yet. And it probably looks similar to something that you could do using a traditional backend, right? Any database could provision data that looks like this and fill in a table accordingly. What's special about this chart right here is that the database is the Cardano blockchain. These are all token names, and the metadatum integer you see in the middle column and the metadatum list you see on the right-hand side is all in on-chain datum, each in a UTXO with a token that associates to each of the student tokens that have been printed in this course, okay? So I wanted to show you what it looks like when a teacher actually makes a distribution that updates this completion datum right here. And for example, I can see that Claudio already has modules 100 through 103 completed and currently has a commitment to module 201, which I can see up here. And this link is available to anybody. You need a teacher token in order to be able to interact with this page. That's how the smart contract works. However, anybody can view this page. So I'll connect a wallet. I happen to have a teacher token in this wallet. I can see a little message right here that says I have one. And this is actually, the titles of these buttons are still temporarily specific to the early part of the course where we are approving modules 100 through 103. So that's actually a small change that needs to be made in the UI immediately. We'll just make this a more general distribute button. But what you see right here, right? Claudio has a commitment to module 201. He made the requisite GitLab merge request, and now the assignment is done. And so now it's time to distribute this commitment. And what's going to happen is this contributor token will be sent back to his wallet address, along with 2 ADA and 10 test gimbals. This is just for fun. Well, we have to include at least some minimum UTXO, right? We saw yesterday that it's probably going to be a little bit less than 2 ADA, but just to keep it simple, this is hard coded into the project. And the test gimbals are thrown in there just so you have some tokens in your wallet that you can play around with, okay? But the most important thing is that this datum right here is going to be updated so that it now includes module 201 in the list. The lucky number is not going to change because teachers are not actually able to change the lucky number. That's how the contract is built. Teachers can only change the list of completed modules. So when I go to distribute this thing, my NAMI pops up, but I want to look at the details for just a second. Notice that there's 2 different recipients in this transaction. I'll zoom in a little bit so we can look at it. okay? One of the recipients is going to be Claudio's pre-prod address, and you can see he's getting his token back along with those 10 test gimbals. The ADA is not even listed here on the assets tab. You can just see it right here. The other recipient is the contract address that holds all of the metadata associated with this contributor token. All right. This is the contract address that we got to see Harsha interacting with yesterday. Now, we're going to go deeper into the Plutus. We're going to see how all of this works. I just want you to have this snapshot in mind about how we're combining a couple of smart contracts and a front-end interface. So I can sign this transaction because I have the token required by the smart contract. And I can see this success modal right away. And this is a point we're going to talk about more as we go deeper into front-end development. But do you see how quick that was for this to pop up? I submitted this transaction and immediately I had a modal with a transaction ID on my screen. But as you know, it's not that fast for a transaction to actually be confirmed on chain. And this just leads us to an interesting detail. This transaction ID is actually calculated before the transaction is on chain, right? As soon as it was confirmed, this transaction that I tried to build, okay, was now existing. All right. It just takes a few minutes longer for it to show up if I search Cardano CLI or on a blockchain explorer.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Calculated by what? Where?
Excellent. Okay, this is all of the cryptography that underlies how any blockchain works, right? So that transaction hash is actually calculated from, number one, all of the UTXO hashes that were input to this transaction, right? One or more UTXOs in, and all of the value and datum that's included in that transaction, right? Or specified in the outputs. And this is the deterministic part of the blockchain, right? Basically, what the blockchain allows you to do is if you know some information, you can chart precisely what the hashes would be along the way, whether it's from block to block or from transaction to transaction.
And that's what gives it that label deterministic. It didn't come from nothing. It wasn't just made up.
If you know all the inputs and outputs for this thing, there's only one transaction hash you could have gotten right there. All right. Same inputs, you'll always get that same output. And that's a good thing. That allows us to verify more than trusting. All right, if I refresh this page, I should see that at least that distribute is gone. I just got to double check that I have for Martin this one right here, and then I can distribute that. When I do, I'm going to include module 102 because I can see the lucky number is not 5. Now, a robot could do that. It's actually possible to write a little bit of JavaScript code that adds module 102 to this list of completed modules automatically. And that's going to be a fun exercise to do later on. For now, the teacher can just look at it and press the button whether or not to include that. And finally, if I go back to the contributor list, I'll see that the associated metadata right here now includes module 201. And there it is, on chain, referenceable by anybody for the foreseeable future. Any other questions about that before we jump into a breakout room session like yesterday? And obviously, you probably have some long-term questions. That's why we're here. What we're going to do over the next few weeks is look at how all of these components work. All right. So thanks for hanging out for that quick demo. Yeah, he already got it. Nice. That's fun to see, Claudio. Excellent. Isn't it? It's kind of a miracle, right? We could all be sitting here on our different corners of the world, and here's this network run by how many people? 3,000 stake pools right now. How many additional passive nodes are running? Right, people with just copies of the blockchain, even if they're not producing blocks. That's crazy. This information is not coming from just some AWS server. This information is just coming from everywhere. We live inside of it, right? And so that's a pretty remarkable thing. I still have to pinch myself. All right, I'm going to switch over to this window. And moving forward, what we're going to do with these live coding sessions, and sometimes there'll be a specific demo like that one maybe to start. And every once in a while, we might have some guest lecturers. I know that the Mesh and Plutus teams are excited to be collaborating on a module and a lesson they're going to teach at an upcoming live coding. But whenever that's not the case, we're going to run similar sessions to the one we did yesterday, where we just have a bunch of breakout rooms and people can suggest whatever topics they want. We'll just keep an archive of all those sessions right here. Yeah, with a template like this. So for today, same as yesterday, let me drop this link into the chat. This is an open board that anybody can join. And the idea here is to come to the template with today's date on it. Why can't I zoom? Let me see. That's a little thing. My Zoom is kind of stuck right now. I'm not sure why. What if I just make it bigger instead? I think I've been asking too much of my computer today, everybody. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm having such trouble right here. There we go. Come on. All right, that'll do. So the idea here, sorry about that. The idea here is jump into the board. And if there's something that you would like to talk about today, whether it's a question you have or a particular module or lesson you're working on, you could just grab a sticky note and drop it into one of these breakout room boxes right here. Write whatever you'd like on that sticky note. And in a couple minutes, we'll do a quick vote where everybody can choose which breakout room or which topics they'd like to cover. I noticed that from yesterday, there's a couple of topics that maybe we didn't go fully into. So if you see something over here and want to just drag it over to today, you can do that. I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes to give everybody a chance to add to this board. But before I do, does anybody have any clarifying questions about how the process works? All right, let's give it a try. I'll set a timer for 2 minutes. You can jump directly into the board and add whatever you'd like. Or if you're not on Miro for whatever reason, feel free to just speak up or drop some ideas into the chat, and I'll make sure those make it onto the board.
Oh yeah, I had the token is not locking yesterday, but it was because my collateral was not set.
I was wondering if there was a connection between these two things. Is it okay if I move these two stickies to the same box right
Yeah.
here? Yeah, that's a cool one.
Hey James, if someone had a question but not necessarily big enough to like fit into a whole breakout room, how do we go about that?
That's a great question. We don't have a system for that yet, because we just started building this one yesterday. Any suggestions for how we handle that?
We used to say, love them all and let God sort it out. I think just write it all down, maybe in the questions section as opposed to in the breakout room section. Like more, and then we just sift out, because it is great to record or keep a record of the questions. Just for one, just having a 2-minute group brainstorming session is really wonderful, just to sort of brain dump everything out and then go through it. So yeah, to answer the question is, yeah, I say just put it down and then we'll sort of sort it out, whether it deserves its own breakout room but rather have a big funnel. Like, let's not brainstorming, like not to filter or try to decide, like maybe something totally weird comes up and you could share that and we won't we won't judge you.
Brilliant. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
What about dividing, because based on what Numan just said, divide this space in two. One is questions and the other one is breakout room themes, I guess.
Definitely. Just like happened right here, where we kind of noticed there's a connection between these 2 points. I can imagine that happening with some questions here, right? So let's all, as we read through these questions, if you think that something somebody posted here fits in with a topic that's already been suggested in a breakout room, or maybe there's a web of questions that all fit together being posted here, I could imagine that turning into a breakout room from a set of smaller questions. Finally, and what I'll start to do as well, like if I see something here, for example, that's coming up really soon or that needs to be covered, we can start to use this priority map. We're not formally using yet, but this has been used a couple times, like internal to the planning team. And as we start to branch out into longer term projects that can't be covered within a single live coding session, we could start to use this little matrix right here to set priorities. Good. Well, there's some questions here that I think are absolutely relevant. So if you see anything on the left-hand side and want to drag it into breakout room number 4, go for it. I think everything here is relevant. It just depends on what our priorities are for today.
Looks like there's this one is module 101. I'm working on 102.
Yes, this would basically give us module 101 in the first breakout room, another room for 102, 103, and a little investigation of collateral, and then another room just for playing with GraphQL and trying to write some queries. That's a pretty cool array for today. I want to support people who want to focus on Next.js, and it's okay if we do that now or later. Same thing with, looks like, scripts. And then also, yeah, this higher level concept of prerequisites and healthy human participation in this course. This is something that I think we should always be aware of. Yeah, so finally, keeping in mind that we'll do the same thing next week. This can also be source material for next week. But does anybody have any objections to these being the 4 breakout rooms for today? All right. Let's give this a try. So I can open up a little voting area right here. And I'm going to make it so that you have to vote via the sticky notes. It looks like I can use the shapes, but I don't want to use the enclosing shape. So just to keep it simple, I'm going to assign it to sticky notes. Give everybody only 1 vote. You got to pick one thing to start, and we'll just take a minute to collect votes for today. I'm going to press start. You'll have 1 minute to find the little plus button on the sticky note that you're most interested in. Any questions before I do? Let's give this a try. All right, so if you're on the board, you'll now be able to choose one of these. And if for any reason you can't access the voting, you can just drop the breakout room number of your choice into the Zoom chat. Just type a 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on what aligns with your interests. I'll add a minute because it looks like people need a little bit more time to vote. I can see right here that 4 out of 9 have voted so far. Ooh, we got a bunch of 4s in the chat. That's fun.
We are not able to vote on 4 for some reason.
I wonder if, oh, you know what? It looks like this sticky note is outside of the bounds. I just learned something. You see how it doesn't have a plus sign on it? I think I didn't drag the box to be big enough. So for now, let's just register a vote for that in the chat. Yeah, so up until yesterday, I had only seen Tavo use this feature. I'd never used it myself. So thanks for giving me a chance to learn as we go. All right, let's see what we've got. Miro's preparing some results. And if I look at the numbers, oh, wait, are those, did I just make those disappear? You're kidding me.
I can see,
You can see them?
I can
Can
see
you-
their votes.
Can you shout them out, Newman?
Yeah, so breakout room 1 got 1 vote. Breakout room 2 working on module 102 got 1 vote. Breakout room 3 commit to module 103 got 1 vote. Create a warning collateral not set got 2 votes. And then the explore GraphQL didn't get, that wasn't a votable. So
Okay, so I can see that we have 3 plus 1 more in the chat for breakout room 3. And then we got 2 more votes in the chat for breakout room number 2. That gives us a total of 3. And then there's 3 votes for number 4 in the chat. Okay. All right, so it looks like by a slim margin, breakout room 3 is the one we'll stick with for today here in the main room. And the reason we're voting on this is because the other breakout rooms are not recorded. Okay. So by keeping these topics in the main room, this is what will be live streamed and recorded for today. The other topics, we're going to open up rooms, but those sessions will not be archived. And once again, this is an experiment. And if there's things we're getting wrong with this experiment, we can change the rules however we want to. Okay.
I have a question about this, James.
Yeah,
So for me, for example, I need help with the uninstalling of Nix, but let's say I'm the only one in there and everyone else is in the other rooms doing their thing. Like, how do I get help? Because I need someone to help guide me through that.
excellent. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And I just want to say also, like, thank you to Newman and Harsha. Before this, they spent some time with me in the study. Was it the study hall over in Discord, trying to figure it out? And we made a little bit of progress, but there's some
Yeah.
secret files that we couldn't figure out.
And likewise, I want to say thank you to you for hanging out in the study hall, because it things like you were like, oh, I need some help. You were in the study hall. I saw you in there. Harsha and I saw you in there. We went in and gave you some help as best we could.
Well, cheers.
Are you still having problems with the removing Nix?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, if you hop into a room alone, I'll definitely help you with that real quick, and we'll try and get you to where you need to go.
cool. Thanks, James. I'll be in room 1 then.
Okay, cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's the best possible answer to that is we find each other and help out. So James, thank you so much. If it ever comes to the point where somebody needs help and can't get it during live coding, let's just be sure to follow up on Discord and create times to get together in study hall or for people to search for the links that are necessary. Good deal. Okay, so I'm gonna make 3 rooms for now. And I'm not making one for breakout room number 3, because if you want to talk about module 103, the token not locking, and then also what we'll do is we'll look at the front end and try to create a little collateral warning. Which is going to be a kind of interesting task. That's going to happen here and be recorded in the main room. So I'm going to open these rooms. Remember that one of the key concepts of open spaces, which is kind of the process we're using right now, is that it's up to you to come and go in and out of any room as you need to, okay? And for everybody who's in a room, just don't ever take it personally if somebody jumps out, okay? This is called the law of 2 feet, and you're free to, some people are butterflies and they're going to bounce and spend a couple minutes in each of the 4 rooms. And other people will stay put and go deep into one thing, and both are the right approach. All right. So have fun if you're leaving. If you're sticking around for room 3, we'll do it right here. Thanks. Oh yeah, butterflies are important. Wouldn't survive without them. I will say that I'm excited to do breakout room 4 again sometime, and we're going to have more chances to do that. But I think this one's a great one to start with. So I'm thinking about 2 things for breakout room number 3. First of all, I would love to hear questions, and if anybody here is willing to do a demo of this transaction not working, and you could share your screen, I would love to start with that so we can all understand what the problem is together. And then after we look at that problem, then we can make some changes to the course website itself, because I think this is a really good idea. There currently is not implemented a warning that comes from the PBL website if you haven't set collateral. And the good news is there is a way to implement it, so we can do it. But before we get to that point, anybody willing to share a screen and show us an example, maybe of this transaction not working?
Yeah, I can try, but I already got it working, so I'm not sure if I can
You
do it
could turn
again.
off the collateral to show us what you mean. Well, actually, you don't have your token right now.
Yeah.
No.
Because it's already committed.
I've actually tried to turn off my collateral before in Eternal, and it didn't seem to do it. I don't know what it would take to actually remove that.
Shut up.
Hey, Marcy, what's going on? One thing you can do with Eternal is you can turn off the DApp connector. All right. So even if it doesn't seem to give you the ability to turn off collateral, you can turn off the DApp connection. And when you do, this has been a thing that's messed me up a bunch of times, is that I forget that I turned that off. And there's actually no feedback. And this is definitely true of the PBL app right now. We have not yet built an error message that tells you when there doesn't seem to be a DApp wallet connected. But I've used a lot of, tools on mainnet that also ignore this warning. And it looks like you just have an unresponsive web page. It's really annoying because there's no feedback telling me why the transaction dialog is not popping up when I press the submit button. Let me see if I can recreate this problem right now. And once again, if anybody wants to take over, just speak up, okay? But I'll give this a try.
A question, James.
Yeah.
I think that I committed but the modules weren't added. I don't know if I missed something in the process, or
is one of these current? So we have an escrow contract that holds these current commitments. Does one of these belong to you?
ASH is my ASH is my contributor token. Maybe if
So
you go down.
Yeah, so I don't see your contributor token currently locked up in a commitment. And the choices. I see that you completed changing your lucky number right here, right? And so, yeah, you'll want to commit to module 103 so that you can get that initial set. Basically, the way we're doing it is we didn't want to introduce Lewis here. We didn't want to overwhelm people starting on module 100 by introducing this contribution and commitment process. Okay, so it's first introduced in module 103. And in this case, what's happening on distribution is when we distribute for module 103, we include modules 100, 101, and 102 as well. So actually, Augustine, would you mind sharing screen and showing, and we can kind of walk through that commitment process so everybody can see it once?
Yeah, give me a second.
Yep. I'll unshare right here. Actually, while he's getting set up, just to show you this, in case you haven't seen it before, anybody who's used a DApp on Cardano is probably aware of this. But if I open a NAMI wallet and I click my little robot icon right here, one of the menu items I have says collateral. And in this case, I don't have collateral set right here. So I would have to set that up. And that's pretty cool because, you know what, in this wallet, however, I don't have a contributor token. So I'm not gonna be able to demo it. But yeah, that's the collateral process. And basically the problem statement we're working with right now is if I don't have collateral set, I'm not able to build a transaction that interacts with a smart contract. And right now, this PPBL website doesn't give anybody any feedback to say, hey, that commit button that you're looking at, it would show up on this page, for example. Right? this button is not going to work and it's just not going to do anything, which is really frustrating. It's not going to tell you why it's not working if you don't have collateral.
Can you see the screen?
Oh, here, let me unshare over here. And yep, I got yours.
Cool.
Looks good.
So probably we want to go to the module 103.
Now, this one right here is unique because you can choose whether or not you want to do the GitLab assignment or not. Okay. The reason we're giving people the option of not doing the GitLab assignment is because some people might not want to associate their on-chain token with their GitLab account. And so if you don't want to make that connection, you don't have to. Okay. So you could choose right here whether you want to do the GitLab assignment or not, and then you can commit accordingly.
Let's do it.
Great. There's a little bit of conditional rendering here, right? You can only see that commit button if you have a contributor token. So as you can see, there is a token in the connected wallet. We can see the name of it, PBL 2023 Ash. And now you should be able to commit. Is that button working?
Yes.
So far, so good. We can see the modal. Is that button working? That looks good too.
Successful commitment tomorrow.
There it is. So as soon as that transaction, which is already successful, right? It built successfully. You satisfied the rules of the validator in the smart contract. Now we just have to wait a few moments for it to be confirmed on chain. And after it is, you will no longer have your contributor token because it'll be locked up at a contract address. And we'll be able to see that you've made a commitment on the distribute page.
Cool. And we can do the same with the module 201.
That's right. This is another little UI bug that needs to be fixed. So maybe I can fix that one live today as well, because obviously you're on module 103 right now. We shouldn't be showing you a module 201 button, but that's just because this is kind of an early implementation of this system. And that's a task that's been on my to-do list. So it'd be fun to do it together right now.
Cool.
Does anybody have any questions before we keep going about this commitment transaction?
Apparently, I passed this model, and I'm currently in 201. But I don't remember if we did some mastery assignment that here's show me the button of module 201.
You'll see it there. If you navigate to module 201, you'll see that there's a commit item in the sidebar. It's down near the bottom. Now, Nikhil has a really important question. Okay, if people don't establish a connection between their token and their GitLab account, how will subsequent commits in GitLab be reconciled with the token? That's such a critical question, and it's 100% unanswered, right? But this is one of the questions that I really hope this course leads you towards, okay? Which is, yeah, anytime we're talking about an identity or a reputation or a record of contribution that's on the blockchain, how do we connect that record to a person? How do we connect that record to, say, another service like GitLab? And on the one hand, what are the benefits of making that connection? In this case, it's that, okay, well, we can use GitLab as the oracle to place some information on chain about what you've accomplished. But everybody has the right to not want to make that connection. You want to keep privacy for some way. On the one hand, maybe that's just a trade-off. Listen, if people want on-chain reputation, they also have to be okay with using their GitLab account to provide what is essentially an oracle service to the blockchain. But if you'd prefer the privacy, you also don't get the benefits that come with it of having that accomplishment confirmed on chain. It's a sticky problem, and there's probably some creative ways to start addressing it. If you ever seen those letters ZK, which stand for zero knowledge, right? This is a case where zero knowledge proofs and oracles, you start to see the connection between these ideas. Hey, I want there to be a proof that I did something on GitLab without making a formal connection between my on-chain token and my GitLab account, right? How can I create a proof like that while obscuring the actual details of that knowledge, right? That's why that field of research exists right now, okay? But it's very much a work in progress. All right. So by now, I'm sure that you wouldn't be able to see the token in your wallet, Augustine, but can you head over to the contributor list and then click on at the top of the page where it says distribute demo. And we should see, yeah, there you are right there, just waiting to be distributed, okay? And then Claudio's, proposal here, you can create a GitLab account for specific use with this project, right? And individual people can decide to isolate their identities. That's going to absolutely play a role in systems of self-sovereign and distributed identity. And I think this is one of the most self-sovereign things you can do, right? The builders of a system can give you a certain set of options for interacting with that system. You can expand your options within that system by taking matters into your own hands and saying, yeah, you know what? My personal GitHub or GitLab account, I don't want that one associated with this token, but I can make a burner account that I do use for the purposes of this token, right? And now look at my identity, right? And a lot of us here probably have multiple email addresses and multiple social media accounts, each one of which represents a small part of our identity, right? And in the very same way, yeah, if I wanted to keep some amount of privacy, I could make a new email address or a new Twitter account or a new GitLab account. And we all know people do this all the time on Twitter, right? People have like their public Twitter account and then their troll account. This is a known pattern. Cool. All right. Should we dig into the front end code and make it a little bit better?
Yeah, that will be cool.
Augustine,
Sounds
thanks for the
interesting.
demo. This is great. All right, I'll reshare again. And I'm not going to need Miro. But I
Since
do
you
want-
were talking about proofs, James, I remember all the hype about who's Satoshi, and many people say I'm Satoshi, but the proof is, of course, can you move that UTXO, the first UTXO, or no? Is that so?
Very
Of course,
nice.
so action could be a proof
Very nice.
or a transaction. So just a comment.
I love that. I love that. And it's, you know what? Next week, we'll release the lessons about minting tokens on Cardano, right? And that's kind of like Cardano has so much in common with Bitcoin, the UTXO model first and foremost. But the way it extends Bitcoin is by allowing anybody to create new native assets. And the same can be said moving forward about any native asset. Hey, do you own the wallet that minted that thing? Right? Is a question we can always ask. All right, I'm in my Visual Studio Code. I'll zoom in a little bit. Let me know if the text size gets too big or too small at any point. I'm currently, if I check the Git status, I've been writing some of the module 202 lessons with some help of the rest of the team. So I'm going to leave this branch right now. Git checkout main. And I'm going to make sure I'm up to date on the main branch. Okay, good. And I always want to do that first. I always want to run Git status to make sure I know which branch I'm on. And then I want to pull the latest changes. And I do this just reflexively every time I work on a project. Even if I was working on it like 2 hours ago, still worth it to do this. You know, it doesn't take that long. So I'm on main. And you know what? I'm not going to make these changes directly to main. And I know a lot of you have already used this process, but just so you can see it, excuse me, in action, I'm going to check out a new branch, right? I can combine the Git commands for branch and checkout using this command right here, okay? Git checkout -b. And I'm just going to call this, let's say, TX UI fixes, or, you know, whatever. I could call it anything, but that's vaguely what I'm working on. I want to make the user interface a little bit better when it comes to handling transactions in a few different ways. Cool. And now if I run git status, you can see I'm on that branch, not main. What I'll do is I'll make the changes that we've talked about, and I might not finish all of them in the next 30 minutes, but let's see what we can accomplish. And whatever I do, I'll then merge it with the main branch at the end of this session. The first thing I'm going to do is just try to find the relevant files. Okay, so in the source directory here, there's the pages directory and there's the components directory. And we're going to be able to jump into the components in just a moment. But let's take a look first at that contributors distribute transaction page. This is the one where you can see the list of the commitments that students have made. Some of you have started studying how different GraphQL queries work. That is happening here, but the results of those queries are being stored in what's called a context. This is a React hook that allows us to pass site level or app level information across the whole project and access it anywhere. We're going to go deeper into that later, but I just want you to know if you were in this file and looking for certain information and you can't find it, it might be because that information is already in the context. There is a GraphQL query right here. What does this query do? It simply is going to look for all the UTXOs at the escrow address. We call this an escrow address because it's holding your commitment as basically a third party while you wait for a teacher to approve that it's complete and distributed, right? So it's not, you know, it's not exactly the same thing as like a loan or an insurance escrow, but I hope you can see it kind of behaves in a similar way. It holds some tokens while you wait for another party to make some decision. And all we're getting from this query is a list of TX hashes. Down below, and wow, my scroll is really laggy today. You would think I'm running a node or something on this computer. Basically, what we do is we take the data from this transaction and we're going to map over those UTXOs. Okay, all the results of that query, we're then going to just make a distribute TX component for each of them. That component is defined elsewhere, and I can open it up. So what I just did is I held the control key and I clicked on the name of that component, which allows me to, without navigating in my Explorer over here, just open up this file directory, directly. You can see this is in the source components, and then we have a GPTE subfolder that handles the treasury and escrow transactions that are running within the app. And in this case, it's the distribute transaction. Now, the thing I wanted to fix here was just the text of that button that still says distribute. You know what? Scrolling is not working, so let me search instead. Button. Okay. Yeah, so it says distribute with or without module 102. Okay. I'm going to just change this to be more general, and it's no longer going to be a dynamically named button. I just wanted to say distribute. And then there's still going to be a button next to it that says whether or not I want to add module 102 to the distribution. And you'll still be able to look at a preview of the updated datum in the little box that's to the right-hand side of where this contribution is made. Okay, but this was kind of just ruffling my feathers here that this was still saying distribute 102, even though it wasn't always 102. So that's a quick little UI change that's just going to make it a little bit more clear what's going on. But the thing we really wanted to focus on today was not the distribute transaction. It was actually making the commitment transaction a bit more responsive. And so you can see in the same directory that has the distribute transaction, we have a commitment transaction right here. I'll open it. I'm going to look at the return statement at the bottom of this file. And this commitment TX component, it's just that little rectangular box that says the name of the project you're committing to. And if a wallet is connected, it's showing you another little box where you can actually commit to that project, okay? If you're not connected, it shows you a little connect wallet message, right? You can't use this component if you're not connected. And if you don't have a contributor token, it says that too. So look at our logic right here. The first conditional statement is actually two things in one. Are we connected, and is there a contributor token present? And if both of those things are true, allow somebody to make that commitment. If both of those things, if we can't say that both of those things are true, it may still be the case that one of them is. For example, you might still be connected, but not hold the token. And that's what's handled here, right? So this is the no part or the false part of this question right here on line 360. And if the answer to this compound statement is no, then we say, well, at least are you connected? And then it says, okay, well, apparently you're connected, but you don't have the necessary token. And then if you're not connected, then we just show you, okay, at least connect your wallet. But this is where the interesting stuff is. Let me just pause here. Does anybody have questions about what we're looking at so far? There's a lot going on here, and I just always appreciate everybody who, you know, I know that different people have different levels of experience with React. My number one intention is not for everybody to become a React developer, but for you to know at least enough to be a project manager who can talk the language. Okay. And so I want you to have this high level view of how the code works. But if you ever see something here where you're like, oh, I need to know more about what's this on confirmation open, for example, all of those questions are in bounds. Okay, so please interrupt me anytime. The key thing I notice is that, yeah, when I click a button to commit to whatever project is selected, that click, right? This is anytime I create a button in React, I can pass it this on click parameter right here. And that points to another function that's defined somewhere else. In this case, on confirmation open. I can highlight this and then I can press Control F to find other occurrences of this right here in the file. And you can see that now in the search bar in my VS Code editor, there's two instances of on confirmation open in this file. There's the one I'm looking at, and there's one up here on line 99 where on confirmation open is defined. Okay. Oh, that's nice, but what does that actually do? Well, long story short, we're using modals from the Chakra libraries. Chakra is one of many available React styling libraries that gives us all sorts of stuff that is, you know, reused all the time. And maybe we don't want to build from scratch, especially when we're prototyping. What a modal is it's that window that pops up on the screen above the rest of the web page. Okay, so when I press the button, the modal is the thing that says, hey, do you want to confirm this confirmation or this transaction? And so we define this thing here, but then down at the very bottom of the file, okay, this is below the rest of what we're seeing on the page. This modal here is defined. Okay, and there's actually two modals. There's this one that goes from line 390 to 404. This is the one, it doesn't have to be in any particular order. This is actually the success modal, all right, that says, hey, you successfully committed to that project. Here's the transaction ID and a message. It may take a few moments for this to show up. Below that is defined actually the one that users are going to see first. This is the one that says, hey, are you sure? Right? Confirm that you want to make that commitment. Your token will be locked. And then another button. And this button has a different on click. And this on click says, handle the commitment TX. Let's go find that. So I'm highlighting handle commitment TX. I'm pressing Control F so I can find it in the file. I see once again, similar. There's two instances of handle commitment TX. There's the one I'm calling right here. And then up above, starting on line 297, this is where I define the thing. This is where maybe we can make some changes, okay? Now, first of all, you might not have gone too deep into mesh yet. If you've never seen a mesh transaction, that's totally okay. You're going to see it next week. But just to give you a first look, right, here we are. We're building a new transaction using mesh with a connected wallet, and we're doing some things. We're redeeming some value. This is where I can unlock something from a contract address. And we're sending some value. We're sending some things, in this case, back to the treasury. And we're sending some other value to the escrow contract. Okay. We add some metadata. We make sure it's appropriately signed. We then take all of that and we try to build the transaction. If that works, we sign it. And if that works, we submit it. I hope these words are starting to look familiar. Build, sign, and submit. If all of that works, now we got a TX hash. And so that transaction hash that you're seeing in the confirmation modal, or I should say the success modal, right? Even before this transaction is fully confirmed on chain, this is the step right here where we can see that TX hash. And this is why we're able to make it appear on the screen so quickly. There's some really important UI stuff that we should do and we will do later to show people the status of a transaction in between the time that it's submitted and actually confirmed on chain. But we're not implementing that yet. What I'm really interested in right now is, okay, what guards can we put up to make sure that maybe before you can even handle a commitment transaction, we are checking that the connected wallet has collateral. Maybe you know the answer to this already, but especially if you don't, does anybody have any guesses? Out of all the tools we've used so far, what tool do you think is most likely to give us the ability to look at a connected wallet and find out if there's some collateral in that wallet?
Well, I don't know, but there was an error message in the console log. But I don't know where that was coming from.
Yeah, very good.
It was hidden way below some key errors. So
Something has given us that error. What the hell is it?
yeah, I don't know. This transaction, right? But where is it sending that?
Very good. And I have to double check where that error is coming from, but I'm pretty sure that's actually generated by your wallet. And I have to check that. But if it's not your wallet, it's probably coming from Mesh, okay? Mesh is the library that allows us to look in the connected browser wallet and get some information about it. And so my guess is that that's the tool we're going to want to use right now in order to implement this feature. Let's see if we can find it. Here's the Mesh website. I'm pretty sure I want to start here with browser wallet. All right. I want to look at some of the APIs that are in this list and see if I can find anything that might apply. Do you see it right here? Okay, so the Mesh browser wallet APIs provide this get collateral. What's this? This is called a function, I think. Yeah, it's an asynchronous function. Wallet.getCollateral. This function should return a list of one or more UTXOs controlled by the wallet that are required to reach at least the ADA value target and the best suitable to be used as collateral inputs. In other words, it's possible, and this goes back to, remember how Steve said earlier in the session that even when he turns off collateral in his eternal wallet, sometimes it appears to still be there. This is an important point, okay? Basically, you don't necessarily have to set collateral directly from the wallet if your address just holds a simple UTXO that already meets the expected parameters for collateral, which is as follows. It has to be more than some minimum amount, right? That's why it says at least ADA here. It's less than 5 ADA, but I forget exactly what it
Hey,
is.
James.
Hey, Nelson.
So I think it will be better if you can just show the eternal wallet and the settings collateral, and there's a please note model written there, and I think the line will be really helpful to see.
Let's look at that. I have a NAMI in this browser, and I try not to put the same I try not to put two wallets in the same browser. I should have eternal over here. Let me make
So
sure.
there's actually nothing specially set on the UTXO. There's no metadata is collateral or something.
Bingo. That's exactly right. Yeah, there's nothing inherent on the UTXO itself that says this is a collateral UTXO.
So you can spend it.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh.
Yep. In fact, Nelson remembers this because he taught me this, because this wasn't the case at first. When smart contracts were first released, you had to specify a separate collateral UTXO from any that you were trying to spend. But now the protocol has been updated so that you can actually spend a UTXO and use it as your collateral in the same transaction. Right. So for example, if I have a UTXO with 50 ADA in it, that is enough to satisfy both my transaction fees and my collateral requirements. And I can use that same UTXO, the same TX hash and index, twice in the same transaction bill. That was not the case before the Vassal hard fork. That's one of the improvements that we got in the Vassal hard fork. All right, so I want to go to my settings. And notice I have a settings button down here and a settings button here. That can be confusing. I want to use the one up here because this is related to my particular wallet that I'm interacting with. This is more like global eternal settings. So let me go to the wallet settings. And here I see collateral. I see that it's turned on. And I even see, it says we found this collateral UTXO, right? And it tells me which collateral UTXO it's using to satisfy those constraints. Nelson, what else should we point out right here?
That this please note part, it explicitly explains how a collateral is handled in eternal. Right? So if it already has an UTXO that has minimum 5 to maximum 20 ADA, then they simply just use that set this as collateral. If we don't find it, then they will create a UTXO with that value and set it to the UTXO. So if you already have an UTXO that satisfies that criteria, then you don't have to sign or anything. When you just turn on the collateral button, it will just set it. So there's no extra signing step. Creating the UTXO isn't part of it if you already have it, right? But if you don't have it, when you try to set the collateral to true, then they will try to create a UTXO. So this is how they handle in Eternal, and it might be different in other wallets.
Right, that's a decision they made to say between 5 and 20. The minimum of 5, they're kind of just rounding up. The bare minimum for collateral is a little bit less than 5, but it's safe just to make it a nice round number. And then they set an upper limit of 20, right? So basically, if I had a UTXO with 100 ADA and nothing else in it, Eternal would not recognize that as a collateral UTXO. Even though if I was building transactions on Cardano CLI, for example, that would be a sufficient collateral UTXO. But it doesn't have to be more than that. And that's just a design decision from the Eternal team to say, yeah, we don't want to use those bigger UTXOs. Let's limit the risk. And this is what collateral is all about, right? You could I encourage everybody to try to, like, on pre-prod build a transaction where you actually lose your collateral. It's not easy. And the only reason this really exists is to prevent bad actors from basically building and confirming many transactions, but then at the step where they're kind of waiting in the mempool to be added to the chain, engaging in some nefarious behavior at that point, trying to double spend, right? Or to try to just spam the network with lots of heavy transactions. That's essentially why collateral exists. And I'm oversimplifying by a lot here, but this is one of those things that we can just be happy that it exists. You know, it does help to maintain the integrity of the network, but you're unlikely, if you're using the network as planned, to, like, just mess up and lose your collateral. Again, I encourage you to try it, but it's still nice. Like, on the Eternal side, what they're saying is, yeah, well, if you ever do use your collateral and you use our system, the most you're going to lose is 20 ADA. Cool. Yeah, good idea. That's helpful to just look at this, how this is handled here. Notice, right, like, turning off this switch does nothing to change the UTXO distribution of my wallet. And that's the key thing to recognize. Okay, this is just a setting in this particular interface, but the UTXO that was sufficient, of course, it's still right there. And Eternal still finds it once again as soon as I toggle that button. All right. We might go a few minutes over time if we want to finish this whole thing today. But I'll go for like another 15 minutes. If you have to drop off, this is still being recorded. But let's at least try to close the loop and build a little something right here. Okay. Back in the documentation, I can see that this wallet.getCollateral function is provided. And I could even connect my wallet, run this code snippet right here in the browser, and I can see that the mesh get collateral function does indeed return at least one UTXO right here. Actually, look, it shows me 2. Okay, so the algorithm that mesh is using returns a list of, in this case, 2 different options. Here's one that has 5 ADA in it. And here's another UTXO that has almost 20 ADA in it. Maybe they're using the same rules as Eternal. So anything between 5 and 20 with no other tokens, show me those UTXOs. Cool. And so really what I want to do is, if I jump back to my code, I'm getting some weird behavior from Zoom here. Go back over here. I'm going to notice a few things. First of all, I notice that I already have wallet instantiated here inside of my commitment component. So over here in the mesh docs where I see that I can set, this is an arbitrary name. I could call it anything, but it's good to call it something descriptive. Collateral UTXOs is equal to wallet.getCollateral. I've already got the wallet part going. Cool. So really all I'm going to have to do here is somewhere in this source code call on wallet.getCollateral. I'm trying to think about, I want to show this to you without getting, there are some weeds we're going to have to get through right here just to make this make sense. And one of the important concepts right here has to do with the word await. This is one of those big JavaScript concepts that I don't expect you to master right now, okay? I just want you to recognize, you're a web user, you know this. Sometimes when you're on a website, it's getting data from somewhere else. And the website loads up, right, when you first go to the address, but there's some information on the page that might not be ready yet because it takes a little bit longer to pull it from a server, okay? That's an example of when we use the word await, all right? Hey, you can load up the UI and then you're going to wait for this other thing to happen, whether it's pulling some data or running a function that just takes a little bit extra time, okay? The general term for this is asynchronous functions, right? Functions that don't all have to run at the same time, but can run in parallel instead of in sequence and can finish whenever they're ready, okay? In this case, it has to be asynchronous because we have to look at on-chain data to see if you have collateral or not. So that adds a little bit of a layer of complexity here. We're going to have to properly use that asynchronous function. One way to do this is in a use effect hook. Again, oversimplifying and making a long story short, use effect is probably the go-to tool in React for handling situations where I can't just load a static web page all at once. And if you've ever been at a website where some value on the page is changing, something simple like a clock, or a website that shows you the price of a cryptocurrency and it's changing in real time, okay? That's, if it's built on React, use effect would be one way to do that. And if it's built on some other software, it's a similar idea, this concept of an asynchronous function, updating what you see on the page, even after most of the page is loaded. So I have, what do I have? One use effect that triggers when PBL context changes. I have one that changes if there's treasury, contract, datum, yeah, some other stuff like that. You know what? I think really what this depends on right here is whether or not, oh, here, this one says if connected. That's kind of interesting. Okay, so here, here's a use effect hook. And this list right here, this is called the dependency array for this use effect hook. Okay, and basically the way it works is this waits for something to happen. And this is a list of the things that might happen. So here's a case that says, okay, look, run all of this the first time you load the web page. Do these things. It doesn't matter what they are, right? We'll get more and more into syntax. But like when you load a page, try to do these things. And then anytime the value of connected changes, run all this code again. And anytime the value of load contrib changes, run all this code again. Okay, and that's how use effect works, right? It always runs once when you load a page, and then it runs again every time some list of things might change. And this list could have nothing in it. This list could have just one thing in it. In this case, there's two dependencies that we're watching for. But the wallet being connected is really the thing I want to look at, right? I would like to check for collateral if a wallet is connected. And that's what you see right here. If connected, do a couple of things. All right. Well, let's just add a thing to that list. We're already like looking for a contributor token in this wallet, await wallet.get policy ID assets. We're already looking in this wallet for UTXOs, await wallet.get UTXOs. This is a mesh function. This is a mesh function. Let's just make one more that says fetch connected collateral. That's an arbitrary name. I'm choosing that name right now to describe what I'm trying to accomplish. And it's going to follow the same format as these other ones. It's going to be an async function. The syntax looks like this. You'll get used to it. And I'm going to set up a const called collateral. And I'm basically just gonna I can actually just copy this line right here from the mesh documentation. Okay. Like this. I'm just going to use the name underscore collateral equals as, you know, basically the variable that stores the result of this function. This is a personal preference of mine to use an underscore in front of temporary variables that are only scoped inside of a function like this. Here's what I mean by that. Underscore token right here, right? It holds the value returned by this asynchronous function. But then the only place I ever use it is right here. And after this function runs, or outside of this function, I'm not looking at that, right? What I'm doing is I'm using a use state hook to then take part of the value of, in this example, a list, and set a value accordingly. Okay, so I use these underscores just to show me that this is a variable with very small scope. It's only being used in a place like this. To get the value beyond that scope, I do have to use another hook. In this case, a use state hook. And I'm going to have to write a new use state hook right now. Here's an example of one. Set connected contributor token. Here's another one. Set connected UTXOs. Let's go find those up here. And you can see this is where I've set up a bunch. Look at all these use state hooks, right? Use state is what I use to hold a value that's likely to change dynamically even after a page is loaded. So use effect shows me the function to run after a page is loaded. Use state shows me the variable that I can use to hold some values after a page is loaded. And used in combination, this makes a lot of interactivity possible on the page. So yeah, I'm just going to use another use state. And we'll call this has collateral, or maybe wallet has collateral, okay? And the way these use state hooks work is you give it a name, and then you repeat that name here with the word set in front of it. This one, I just want it to be a Boolean. I just want to know yes or no, is there collateral in that wallet? In TypeScript, we can say what the type has to be by using syntax like this. But for something simple like a Boolean that could just be true or false, TypeScript knows what type it is. If I say false, TypeScript is like, oh, that must be a Boolean. Great. All right. So now we're going to be able to use this hook. And we're going to, I know we're already over time, but I'll feel better if we close this loop. Okay. So if you have to go, of course, see you soon. And you can catch up with the video. Okay, I'm going to go back down now to where we were looking at that. That was the connected UTXOs, right? I think so. Here it is. Yeah, I was just working here. Okay. So now I have a hook similar to these ones. Now, when do I want to set this to true? It'll be easy if get collateral returned true or false, but it doesn't. Get collateral returns a list of UTXOs. So basically my Boolean is just going to be, well, is the list at least one item long? Right? Is the length of that list greater than 0? That's going to be the Boolean value of wallet has collateral. So we say, here's our function. Get the collateral like this. And I'm going to write something that looks very similar to the two examples above. In this case, if collateral, oh, look at that nice little AI suggestion right there. Well, I guess I'll use it. If collateral.length is greater than 0, then let's set wallet has collateral to true. Look at the collateral in the wallet. If the list is at least one item long, set this value to true. And if not, there's nothing else to do. We don't have to worry about anything, right? Because initially when we created this hook up above, what was the original value? False. It's false by default. And it's true only in the case where we can see the connected wallet and it has collateral in it. Finally, we call this function right here if the wallet is connected. Fetch connected collateral. And the reason we have to do this part is because this use effect hook runs when the page first loads. Okay. And this was like, I remember this being a hard idea for me to get at first when I was learning about hooks, right? So yes, this hook right here runs over and over again every time the value of connected changes or the loaded contributor token changes. But it also runs the first time we load a page. And if I didn't have this part right here, right, it would just try to look for all this information and I would get all these error messages. It would say, wait, I can't get policy ID assets. There's no wallet. And I can't get the UTXOs. There's no wallet. And I can't get the collateral. There's no wallet. And we don't want those error messages. So what we do is we say, okay, well, only if there's a connected wallet, do all these things. And this essentially assures that nothing happens here when the page first loads, because we need somebody to connect a wallet to make the thing work. Cool, we're almost there. We now have a value of whether or not we have some collateral. And now we just have to use it in the UI. So let me think about this. Down below. What's the best place to put this? Like I could put a message in the commitment, the confirmation modal, right? So somebody presses a button and says, hey, I want to commit to this module. Would it feel okay to you guys if we then had some conditional logic here that basically said, whoops, you don't have collateral. if there's no collateral? I could imagine other ways to do this, but just because I know we're already over time and just, this is an initial implementation. That's what I'm gonna do, okay? We've got modal content. And as long as there's collateral, all of this looks good to me. And actually, it's just this part right here. I'm gonna keep a header and I'm gonna keep a footer. The header can stay the same. The footer can stay the same. But in between, let's do one more thing. Curly brackets, and I have a question. Wallet has collateral, question mark. And then the pattern here is that we have two sets of parentheses with a colon in between them. And everything in these parentheses is what we do if the answer to this question is yes. And then the second parentheses is what we do if the answer to this question is no. Well, if there is collateral, I just want to do this part right here. Let's put it here. Whoops. But if there's not collateral, let's just put up a message that says, please set collateral in your wallet. Now, there's probably a more helpful way we could write this message. We could probably give somebody a link to learn more about collateral, but I'm going to save that for later. For now, this is some nice basic functionality. And maybe the one more thing I want to do is only give people a button right here to make the commitment if there's collateral. Let's do one more thing. Right, so I've showed you this question mark right here. Question. Answer is yes. Answer is no. For some conditional rendering, the only thing we need to do is show a component if the answer is yes. We don't care about the no case. And so we can use a pattern similar to this right here. Open our curly brackets, ask the question while it has collateral, but instead of using a question mark, I can use a double ampersand here and then just put a single component. Okay, so I hope you can see that what's right here on lines 429 to 434 looks a bit similar to what we have right here. The difference is if I use the double ampersand instead of the question mark, I don't have to worry about the no case. This is only going to allow this button to appear if the wallet has collateral in the first place. I'll save this. Now, of course, I have collateral in this wallet. Let me see if I have a wallet here that doesn't have collateral in it. I have a couple different wallets. You know what we can do? I'm going to make a new account called Collateral Test. And that's going to give me an empty wallet. And remember how we know that, you know, this is looking for UTXOs that are not too big and not too small, right? So maybe, oh, I know what I can do. I know what I can do. Let me, from right here, I have a, you know what I'm going to do? Let's just take, wait, where'd my,
Does it already work without anything in it?
well, yeah, I wanted to show, I thought I would show it that way, but I can't even get to the commitment modal if I don't have a PPBL 2023 token. Right, that button's not even going to show up on the screen. So Collateral test. Copy this address. And let's send to this address. I'm going to send 100 test data. Give that a moment to arrive. Oh, that's why I couldn't see it. I gotta scroll down. Oh, I forgot about all these extra wallets. Okay, that's the one I want though. And soon this is gonna have 100 ADA in it. So while I'm waiting for that, let me navigate. I'm on the live site right here. I actually want to run this in localhost. Off screen, I'm just gonna spin up. I'm going to run yarn dev so I can start the site on my server. It's not there yet, but I can still jump into module 100 where I can try to connect this wallet. All right, it's connected to pre-prod, doesn't have Lovelace yet, but those will be here any moment. And while we wait for that, let me go back. I was trying to maybe commit to module 103. But like I just said to Martin, right, I can try to commit, I can connect this wallet, but if it doesn't have any tokens in it, I can't even see a button right here to make this commitment, right? So the first thing I need in order to test the new feature is that in the first place, there's that token there. Where's my Tata? Didn't come through yet. Any questions while we wait for that? That was a lot. Y'all are cool for hanging out for that part.
That was very informative. Thanks. Yeah, I know I also struggled with the connected because the way I think of it now, it's going from undefined to so it changes from undefined to false, and then it also runs. But in the beginning, I was like, why is it running? I get all these errors, like very annoying.
Oh gosh, like I wish you could wave a magic wand and just understand what a use effect hook was really doing. Right? It's such a cool feature, but it's, you know, I know a couple of us on this call have been on a silly journey about making sure we understand what the heck a use effect hook is doing.
Yeah, I'm still wrapping my head around it, but it's getting there. It's a quite, you cannot do really anything a lot different. If you have the pattern, you have to stay in the pattern of the use effect with the use state, just where you show it. Otherwise, it doesn't work really for me.
Yeah,
I get into trouble.
I like that. It forces you to stay in that pattern. All right, I got 100 ADA here. Now I need to wait for another transaction to go through. I need to I'm just going to mint myself one more test token. I can connect. Now I can see this wallet does have Lovelace. It doesn't have this yet. I'm going to call this one Collateral Tester in honor of today's session. Oh, look, there's an error message. Here's another place. Gosh darn it. This is funny. All right, y'all see what just happened here? So I've got this. We just did all that work to create a check at the commitment step. But of course, I can't even mint this token without having collateral set in this wallet. And there is a little alert here, okay? and this is a good point. I could have just skipped all of that work I just did if I wanted to just have a vanilla alert like this. All right, and the way to make this little thing appear on the screen is it's just you write the word alert with some parentheses and what message you want. So obviously I'm seeing that right there. Let me do something different. I have a dummy PBL token in this wallet. I'm going to use it. This one. This is just a PPBL 2023 that doesn't even have a custom name on it. But for our purposes, it's actually going to work for right now. Let me send it over. All right, and I got to wait for that transaction to go through. So this will take just one more moment, and then I can pop over to my new wallet and test one more time. Modules 103. Commit. This wallet. Oh, which appeared, yeah, just got the asset. Cool. All right, so finally, if I connect this wallet and I tap that I want to commit to this module, I can see that this is just the silly name because it's a placeholder token, but I do see the commitment button. And let's see, here's the moment of truth. When I press this button, what I expect to happen is I'll see the message that says you don't have collateral, and there will be no submit button on the transaction. Let's see. Yeah. All right, that's pretty good. Please set collateral in your wallet. And there's no button. All I can do is close this message. That's kind of the desired behavior. Could we improve upon this? Yeah, you're darn right we could. But for a quick demo, not a bad outcome for a live coding session. Who's got questions before we break? How's this feel? I appreciate you guys. Juan, thanks. I felt like I was on the spot, like you should be running this lesson. Juan's the person I go to with React questions. Nelson, thanks for the coaching along the way. Make sure we looked at Eternal, and thank you as well for jumping into this stuff. All right. Cool. That was fun. We're going to keep going with breakout sessions or breakout rooms like this one. If anybody here ever has a lesson that you would like to teach, let's consider that an option. Okay, so if there's something that you want people to be looking at that you think people might have questions about, and you'd like to suggest that as a breakout room, so you can share something that you know about, that would be really cool if we got to see that start to happen. Yeah, and I appreciate the chance to get something done that needed to be done anyway. Yes. Yeah, Claudio, great question. Okay, so Claudio asks in the chat, is it possible to upload the modules earlier? I agree that the time between when we put the modules up and the live coding session the same week, it's not much time. But we're on a shoestring. Like this team is really all volunteer basis for right now. We're going to work really hard to get Gimbal Labs funded to keep providing this. But with the people we have right now, we're moving as fast as we possibly can. And thank you for dealing with that. What I think we're really starting to see is that often modules are going to get uploaded one week, and then maybe people won't have time to look at it until the following week, and that's okay, right? So module 202 is going to go live. couple days from now. And then at live coding next week, we're going to keep running breakout rooms. We might not even talk about module 202 next week. It might be another week before we even get to it. And that's I think that's the best we can do for right now. Someday when PPBL is cross our fingers, well funded, and we can really have a team to do this work. Yeah, we'll be responsible to our funders to get things out faster. But looking forward to having that problem. All right. Really appreciate it, everybody. And I'll see you next week, if not sooner. Be in touch on Discord or in self-organized study sessions, and we'll keep learning together. Cheers.
Thank you, James.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Nikhil.
Enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, Juan. You too. Appreciate you being here.
Super.
Thank you.